We'll call to order the Tuesday, January 8th meeting of the St. Croix EMS Commission meeting. Everybody get a chance to take a look at the minutes?
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes.
Okay.
I'll second.
And we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We are going to skip the financial report, seeing that we just met not too long ago about the financials. We'll go right into discussion and possible action on the RFP by City of Hudson for exploration in contracting our services in part or in whole. So we had a meeting yesterday, and as just an update to that meeting, we made the decision to no longer look at North Memorial Health's proposal, as well as no longer looking at Lakes Regions. North Memorial, it was discussed last night that the price or the cost of that service would be just too high for us to sustain. And then the reason for Lakes Regions is that it was dependent, their proposal was completely dependent on transfers, which now transfers out of Hudson Hospital is being, first call is Lakeview, correct? As of January 1st.
Correct.
Okay. What was your guys' thoughts, Stan?
As far
Suzanne? Just the meeting yesterday. I mean, is there anything outside of that meeting that you wanted to bring up, or?
Not really. I mean, I have an advantage over a lot of folks. I've been here a lot longer, so I don't have the questions that everyone has. You know, it's a business decision as far as I'm concerned, and it's, you know, I mean.
Gotcha. Suzanne?
Nothing to add.
Okay, okay. I just wanted to kind of open up the floor to you guys. Do you feel like you have a good seat at the table, participating wise? Participation? Okay.
Oh, sure.
Good.
Yeah, no, there's no problem with participation. I mean, it's just, you know, it's the, you know, the nourishment thing was a question. You know, I mean, I was hoping we'd had more information on that, but I know when they meet now, and I know it was, you know, what's on the board and stuff like that. So that's a question. So it takes a lot longer. If that was, if you get rid of that, I mean, the decision process is a lot simpler for a lot of folks, I think.
Right. And you're talking about option C from St. Croix EMS,
correct,
right? Yeah, I too. I mean, that's a lot of question marks. I think the good first step is exploring either option A or B in the St. Croix EMS proposal.
Well, the issue I have with that is that the cost of the new structure is not included in either one of those proposals. I mean, that money's got to come from someplace.
Right. Well, and that's something that we discussed yesterday too. Is getting really looking at that final number with all things included. Right. It's much easier to compare apples to apples than apples to oranges, right?
That's not in the proposal is because it's not a St. Croix EMS decision. It's a city decision.
Right. No, and it wasn't part of the RFP, and I understand that, Josh. I mean, you know, and I'm not doing that at St. Croix EMS. It's like, but that's a number that's out there that you know the partners and everybody has to be aware of.
I mean, it's come up in every, you know, RFP meeting that we've had, and I get asked the question, you know, well, what are you going to do for a facility? Well, I'd love to have Ward Avenue up there, but that's not my decision. That's a decision that the city needs to make, and then that's a decision that the city needs to figure out how to fund.
No, I agree. No,
so well said. Yeah, I mean, we shouldn't be asking you that question, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
that really falls back directly.
And I understand that. I just wanted to.
Is the council's, you know, I mean, what are we going to do? How are we going to pay for the, you know, the facility?
Right. But I don't want that to be the deciding factor of, you know, St. Croix EMS or Lakeview. And I have a feeling that it's going to be, because obviously it's going to be a cost to North Hudson, it's going to be a cost to Troy, there'll be a, you know, a cost to the city, and I don't want that to be a deciding factor in what ambulance service we keep, or what ambulance service you guys.
And when I
so
say
choose to
looking at
go for
everything,
it.
I mean beyond the building, it's what are we gonna do with the dive team, right? Is that going to now be an expense or, you know, if we were to go with Lakeview, what are we gonna do with first responders, right? Is that gonna be a program that we're gonna start up and help fund, and what does that look like, right?
I mean, but
I
that's
mean, it
all,
works both ways.
that's
I
all
think.
stuff that wasn't, you know, spelled out in the RFP and what we're
No,
gonna do
correct.
with it. And
Correct. And I'm not saying anything, I'm just saying it works both ways. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I mean, the cost to the city for, and to the partners for the building, you know, going with Lakeview and, you know, the costs associated with going with a service that is just doing the ambulance, right?
Right. But I mean, it's, you know, it's the elephant in the room. I mean, last time we went through this with Lakeview a couple of years ago, I mean, that was a big part of the discussion as well, and nothing was determined back then about it. About first responders or the dive team
Right.
or anything, so,
Right. I think that conversation got cut short,
well,
but
it should have been all figured out before the conversation got cut short, but
granted.
Josh, I can't hear you, so I'm putting the mic.
A rental to the partners, that building up on the hill? Like, we, you know, we're paying rent, or we're paying the cost of this room and, you know, the utilities and so forth, and wouldn't there be a rental charge against the partners if that building was remodeled up on Ward?
Yes, is that correct, Brenda?
Yes, there would be some kind of rent payment, utilization payment, or some, and it would be up to the city, you know.
Yeah.
The city would have to decide if it was going to be a rent charge, a utilization charge, or if they were going to, if there was going to be some other way to pay for that remodeling up at Ward Avenue, yes.
So I'm thinking, well, that, you know, I'm learning that this building across the street is going to be leveled and probably sold for a profit. And that may offset, you know, a lot of the cost up there. But the firehouse too is going to cost the city quite an amount. So, you know, it may not be the high amount that you think. And, you know, I think that's going to offset the elephant in the room, as you say. Is that there'll be, I don't know the city's business, what these amounts are, but that's something to consider.
Thanks for that. Yeah. Anything else about the RFP process? I know that we're meeting, our next meeting is February 4th. We did discuss potentially doing pros and cons, sort of, off the, and I would invite you guys to do it. I mean, you don't have to do it, but it'd be good to, if.
It's part of the team, you know, I mean, you know, that's what Rich invited us for, I guess, was to be, you know, for the input from the partners, and I got no problem giving you pros and cons.
Great, great. And thank you for the list, too, by the way, for the New Richmond board members. Anything else? I guess I can open it up to you guys, too, if anything with the RFP process. Jim or Joyce? No? If you could step up to the...
My first perception is that we made it easier to reach a decision by eliminating two of the candidates and only having two to look at. So we do need to take a hard look at the financials relative to space for St. Croix EMS, and that's there. We have to do it. So there's no, and we need to help this group. And our role here and your role is to support St. Croix EMS as in the best way we can, so we make the best possible presentation. So, my perception was just like yours, Bill. For St. Croix EMS, it's A or B, because C is too far out there and too many unknowns. It's a possibility, has its upsides and downsides, and look at what we've gone through for the last 2 years, looking at the upsides and downsides of just working with Lakeview. Trying to figure out how we're going to work with New Richmond, I don't think can be part of this discussion. You know, that's the way I'm looking at. That's just not a consideration for me.
Mm-hmm.
It would be great at some point. Is this the way we need to go? Is this the way the world needs to go? But I think we're looking at what are we going to do with St. Croix EMS? How can we even? Josh said 1 year minimum, and I agree. 1.5 is kind of the number that I would think about. Maybe 2 years, considering the kind of situation we're in. So that's what can we do for 2 years to be viable?
Right.
For St. Croix EMS to be viable.
Right. And quite frankly, going into that, pardon me, going into that conversation with New Richmond, it'd be better to have our knowns, right? We know where our building is, right? We know where our home is, versus saying, hey, we're thinking of how would that work? I mean, that just, to me, would kind of muddy the water, so to speak.
Right. We know financials is going to be an issue.
Right.
You know, that we can't come in there and be a burden and increase their cost. I don't think we'll get the votes if we're going to increase their costs. They're not going to. They're going to see we've got an operation that's working fine for us, and we bring you in. Yeah, maybe it helps the world, you know, but it's not going to do anything for New Richmond Association if we come in with a big burden. So we have to have that figured out exactly what it's going to be and how it's going to be supported here.
Thanks, Jim.
Quick question. Has there been any more discussion about the current contracts with Village of North Hudson and Town of Troy with St. Croix EMS right now?
The way that was left is that we're going to make a decision as a council, I believe, was it March or end of March, so end of Q1, basically, as we're going through this process. Mm-hmm.
Just kind of a loose end, so to speak.
What's that?
Kind of a loose end, so to speak, in terms of...
Not a loose end, just part of the process, right? We invited them into this process with the RFP, so we felt that making that decision right now to say in or out, we want them part of that process. Similar to Town of Hudson, really, is when I, made that push early on to be like, hey, don't you want to be a part of this process? And can we hold off until that process? Brenda, do you feel comfortable with the time frame yesterday? I just want to circle back.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
So that February 4th, getting the numbers, I know that it's a busy time. Yeah?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, we'll get it done.
Thank you. Anything else about the RFP? Joanne?
When will North Memorial and Lakes Region be notified, or how do they get notified?
Representative from Lakes Regions was here yesterday, and I believe Devin is reaching out to them.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Update on contract for billing company.
I sent an email just before the holidays down to the billing company, and I didn't hear back, and so I sent another email yesterday. I haven't heard back, so I'll follow that up with a phone call today. So that's where we're at.
Okay. Would you mind sending?
I will say that they are billing us at the new contract rate.
Okay.
So, yes.
Okay, great. Is there any way that you could send that maybe to Joanne to kind of disperse to the group? Sure. What, if you get an answer on that?
Oh, yes.
Perfect. Discussion and possible action on interfacility transport call-down list. So it was the meeting prior to last night's meeting in the EMS Commission not EMS Commission, sort of this ad hoc meeting as part of the RFP process, that we heard that as of January 1st, all transfers, the first call on those transfers out of Hudson hospitals will be Lakeview. Mm-hmm. Is second St. Croix EMS currently?
Yeah.
Okay, so those two, in a sense, flipped.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So a little bit disconcerting from the commission's end, from what I understand, was we had the commission meeting about 7 days prior, and my understanding from you was that we were going to wait through this process to make that decision. So it kind of came as kind of a shock to us in that RFP meeting.
Yeah, during the EMS commission meeting, we said as of now, which happened to be December 4th, and on December 13th, during the RFP process, we thought it'd be timely and very helpful to make that known, because that was a key piece of information for everybody to know, I think, in order to make informed decisions. So that's why that announcement was made at that time.
Gotcha.
Did you know on December 4th that that announcement was going to be made?
No.
So what happened to the collaboration that we were going to have in regards to transfers and stuff that you brought up at the last EMS commission meeting? This
Well, I
would be
think,
a
I mean-
collaborative effort, and discussions need to be had, and, or is this
Well, I never said discussions need to be had. I said we would look at all
watch
of
the
this.
video and that's
But
what,
here's the situation. I mean, if you look about it, if you look at it this way, we now have a Lakeview ambulance and paramedics on site. And so it just makes sense that we would contact them first. I don't know why we would contact anyone else when they happen to be on site. So that's how that decision was made.
okay, understandable.
And if you think about continuity of care, if you think about, handoffs, response times, those type of things, it just makes, again, practical sense that we would contact the paramedics and the ambulance that are on site at the hospital as first, and then we'll still continue to partner with St. Croix EMS like we always have for second call. So that hasn't changed either.
And what's your definition of continuity of care? What do you mean by that?
Just making sure in terms of, as I said, with handoffs and in terms of efficiencies with response times, and making sure that we can respond as quickly as we can, and making sure that we can provide the less level of service that we can.
So even though there's no level of service difference between St. Croix EMS and Lakeview,
I'm not sure I know where you're going with that, Josh. Say that again.
there's no level of service difference. We both provide the same level of care.
I can't speak to that, Josh. I'm not going to get into that.
I just think, I don't know, I think it was very poor timing that the hospital decided, or Health Partners, whoever made the decision. I thought it was very poor timing of it. I knew it was going to come out on the 13th. I knew that would be a strategy that Health Partners was going to throw out there to eliminate other people in this process. Because
I think you're reading too much into it. There was no strategy behind that. We thought it was actually very good timing and very helpful. Had we not made that decision or shared that announcement at that time, we'd still be circling and nobody would know who has the transports. And that was a key determinant or a key part of the decision-making process. So that's why we shared it at that time. We thought it was very timely and helpful.
yeah. Was there a issue with St. Croix EMS doing the interfacility transports?
No, there's no issue. But again, since we have an ambulance and we have paramedics on site, it just makes good sense that we would contact them first for any of the transfers. They've done an excellent job since the first, and we haven't had any issues with that. But it doesn't mean we're abandoning St. Croix EMS. We're still going to partner with St. Croix EMS for second call.
Okay.
And I remember at past meetings hearing that Health Partners was not going to allow a competitive ambulance service to take their transfers out of Hudson. I don't remember what meeting that was at, but I mean, that would just be bad business. I mean, for if you've got the bus there, I mean, they weren't going to do it. I've heard that at the meetings that I've been at. They're not going to give it up to a competitor.
Yeah, I think
Hudson was not considered a competitor, whereas Lakes Regions or somebody like, or another hospital outfit would be, and then that was going to be taken off the table.
I think we've had that discussion here in this commission meeting.
I've heard
Tim brought that piece up, especially with Lakes Regions, I think. So I guess at the end of the day, I mean, so let's say we go through this RFP process, we go with option A or B of St. Croix EMS. The decision made on December 13th, or announced at December 13th, don't know when the decision was actually made, would Hudson Hospitals consider flipping that back? Or is this mostly a decision based on the ambulance being at Hudson Hospital?
It's more the latter. I think the decision was made, and again, I think the timing was very purposeful at that time to share it at that RFP presentation. That was a key piece of information that everybody needed to know. As you said before, kind of the elephant in the room. Without that information, we'd be circling around, from here to the end of time. I mean, we needed to get that decision or get that information out there, which is why we made that announcement then.
Okay.
And
So
it is
that's a long-term
yeah.
decision.
And of course, it's well within the discretion of the hospital to make that decision. We did it in collaboration, myself and others. We felt the timing was appropriate. We have the utmost respect for St. Croix EMS. We've always been a strong partner. We'll continue to support them. But it's really just a matter of flipping who gets first call. And it just makes sense since we have the ambulance there and the paramedics are on site, 2 of them 24/7. It just makes sense that we would contact them first.
You have 2 ambulances, you said?
1 ambulance, 2 paramedics on site.
Is there going to be any notification given to St. Croix EMS or the City of Hudson stating that as of January 1, the transfers are gone?
Well, we felt, given the timing, that was the quickest we could do it was during that public forum.
Right, but since December 13th to December 31st, was there any thought of a official letter from Health Partners or Hudson Hospital or Lakeview?
We can certainly do that. We felt that announcement
Well, I think
in the
it's a
public
little-
forum sufficed. I mean, everybody was there. We made the announcement and everybody knows that, so. I'm sensing some antagonism here, some hostility, and I just need to clarify. I mean, this strictly had to do with the contract with the town of Hudson, the fact that we have that ambulance and paramedics on site. I realize I'm repeating myself, but it's just that. It's nothing more than that.
I just asked if there was the thought of notifying St. Croix EMS or the city that, besides in the public forum, as you asked, if Lakes and North Memorial were going to get notified since they were out of the RFP, and how that process worked. I just asked if there was a thought of, Health Partners or Hudson Hospital or Lakeview, sending just a little note to the city saying, hey, this decision was made and this is what we're going to do. So communication needs to stay there. That's the biggest problem with this whole thing that we have going on right now anyways, is a lack of communication. So it's just a simple question. I'm not trying to cause a fight. I'm not trying to poke the bear in the room. I'm not trying to do anything. It is a huge shot to St. Croix EMS when that came out in that meeting. I mean, everybody about fell out of their skin downstairs.
Okay.
And it's a huge, it's been the huge elephant in the room. And that's all I'm going to say about it. So I think
if St. Croix EMS would like us to send a formal letter or something, we'd be more than happy to.
I think it's a little too late now when we're at the 8th of January, but I just asked if it was a consideration.
It certainly is a consideration. We can do that. We felt that the announcement at that time, because it was a key piece of information that people needed to know at that time, that's why we shared it at that time.
Actually, I think it would have been more timely to give that information before applicants for the RFP began their planning for their presentation. If they had known that, we probably would have had one less presentation from Lakes Regions. And I think that would have been much more timely instead of waiting until the actual meeting where we're going over the results to that RFP. I think it was untimely to do that.
The problem is we didn't know at that time. As I mentioned on December 4th, the newspaper quoted me accurately. I said, as of now, which was December 4th, we would still continue to call St. Croix EMS. We didn't know that. We didn't have that determination at that time.
Just like Stan here said, it's been a known factor that that Lakeview has said that if there are any competitors, they're not going to allow a competitor to handle transfers. So it's a known factor. I think you probably should have done it ahead of time. It would have been much more helpful.
In hindsight, I understand what you're saying. The issue is we didn't know at that time on the 4th. And so that's why we felt, having that discussion with the RFP process and the preparation, we felt it's important to make that announcement during that time when we knew we could provide that answer. Because it was an important question. But I feel like we're kind of going down a rabbit trail here, that the decision was made, it was announced, And in the context of how do we evaluate RFP proposals, responses, I'm not sure how this is even relevant anymore in terms of the timing or those type of things. I mean, we're trying to be open and honest and transparent. We always have been, and that's why we wanted to make that announcement as quickly as we could at the time that we had that information then.
So, again, just kind of going back to what this body is looking at, right, is coming up with budgets and what does that look for 2019, and just, you know, would be nice going into that process as well, right? Mm-hmm. That transfers are out. Okay, so what now? What action do we need to take? So it's I'm just trying to bring it back to this commission. Forget about the RFP process. Just hearing that, I understand that we're all there. I mean, we're all there. But just knowing that information prior to, I mean, you know, you look at Town and Hudson, you know, basically exiting out of the EMS commission meeting, you know, this commission 2 months out, 3 months out of a calendar year. It's just the timing isn't great. That's all.
I understand.
That's the way the contract was set up. Mm-hmm. So we only had, you know, we had to be out by September.
No, correct. I'm just saying in the grand scheme of things,
right.
Just not knowing for that last minute. Yeah. But, yeah.
And if you think about the sequence of it, when Town of Hudson announced that they were going to go with Lakeview, that's when we determined that we needed to have an ambulance and paramedics on site. At that point in time, we said, okay, we need to have them on site by the 1st. At that point in time, then the discussion occurred, well, if we're going to have an ambulance and paramedics on site, we might as well give them first call. It just makes sense. So it was really the sequence of events, the timing of it. There's nothing nefarious going on. I just want to make that very clear.
So how have, and I know this may be beyond, or maybe not, how do you see the interfacility transport, how do you see that affecting calls to Town of Hudson? Do you know if you've had many calls to the Town of Hudson ambulance-wise?
I know. I just checked yesterday. We've had 13 interfacility transport requests.
Okay. And
Lakeview handled all 13 without skipping a beat. And the fact that they're literally about 50 feet from the ED in the ambulance, it just makes sense that they're there and they can respond first. Now, of course, all we've essentially done is flip-flop, as you said. Mm-hmm. First call was second, so St. Croix EMS will get second call, versus before it was Lakeview got second call.
Right. But it would be within the realm of reason that as you're doing a transport that you may need St. Croix EMS to cover Town of Hudson? A call that may come in from Town of Hudson?
Well, I think it all depends on availability, the dynamic deployment, those type of things. If there's a major accident on whoever the case may be, circumstances could require that.
Okay.
Just as it may require it as in the pre-existing situation with St. Croix EMS being first call.
Okay. So here's my question, I guess, is there anything that needs to change from a protocol standpoint now that change happened between St. Croix EMS and Hudson Hospital?
I'm not aware of any changes other than we're calling Lakeview first, St. Croix EMS second, as before it was St. Croix EMS first, Lakeview second, because we have the resources on site.
Gotcha. And I guess that's I'm just asking, is there any better way to interact? I mean, is there anything that you need, Josh?
I just need a copy of the new transfer protocol that Regions EMS had distributed, or the docs had distributed.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
The region, or the transfer protocol that was distributed by the Regions docs that our Regions EMS put in place, and Dr. Burnett and a couple other docs put in place. I just need an updated copy of that.
Okay.
Anything else on interfacility? Jim?
First of all, I want to make sure that Regions, Lakeview, Hudson Hospital Health Partners is holding Lakeview ambulance service to the same standards that they've held St. Croix EMS to. There's been a time limit, and that's been an issue in the past, and make sure that happens. Secondly, you weren't at the meeting when it was announced, but I asked some questions about the logistics, and I have not heard an answer yet that says you're going to provide the same, Lakeview is going to provide the same service to the town of Hudson that St. Croix EMS has, which is we do not take a transfer unless we have an ambulance ready to take that and a 911 call. And that's always been our standard, and that's not how Lakeview is operating. So the ambulance is going to be in transit. It's not going to be here. You're going to tie the ambulance, your one ambulance, EMS ambulance up. Your emergency ambulance is going to be tied up with this transfer until the backup gets here. So that's, I'm just saying, make it the same. And I don't think it is. That's not the standard. That's not the way that Lakeview operates with their dynamic deployment. You won't have an ambulance based here, ready to go. So I just be sure that
I'd have to refer to the RFP, obviously. I'm not an EMS expert, but well, I'm not sure why you're saying there'd be a degradation of service. I mean, that's
if you don't, you're taking the level of service down. You have a commitment to St. Croix, to town of Hudson, to have a 911 ambulance available, and you do not take a transfer. We're never allowed to take a transfer if we didn't have our 911 ambulance available. So you can't. If you do that, which dynamic deployment does, then you're going to reduce the level of service.
So had this been discussed with the EMS team from Lakeview while they were here, or?
Yes,
what did they
that was
say
a question. I believe that it was.
I asked those questions during the meeting about the logistics, about how it was going to operate.
And what was the response?
And just exactly what I said.
The dynamic deployment was the.
So this team here will start picking up the patient, this ambulance here, while another ambulance is in route. The one if it's somewhere else, you guys don't have that many ambulances to deploy. Sorry.
Well, I know there's 7 ambulances. I mean, well, here's what I'll say. Obviously, partnering with Lakeview EMS, I have tremendous confidence in their abilities. I have no reason whatsoever to think that there would be a degradation in service. To the contrary, I think there may be some opportunities in terms of continuity of care, like I said, in terms of the handoffs and efficiencies and those type of things. They've been doing this a long time. They've got, I think it's, I can't remember how many paramedics they have, but it's over 30, I think. And so there's no reason to think that they won't be able to provide the same level of service and or better than what's currently being provided. That is not a shot at anyone. Like I said, we have the utmost respect for St. Croix EMS. We've always been strong partners. We've been very supportive. We'll continue to do that. But I need to stay out of the RFP part of it. I've recused myself from the RFP evaluation as a member of the commission and as a representative of the hospital. Granted, I'm a Health Partners employee, but I want to remain objective. I want to remain unbiased. And I think it'd be inappropriate for me to give any opinions on the RFP to that extent. But I can say that I believe that Lakeview, from everything I know, everything I've read, and everything I've heard, they would provide the same level of service with the model that they proposed. In other words, I disagree. So
I'm not talking about the RFP process. I'm talking about what happens between now and if Lakeview takes over the service in this area, that you're not providing the same guarantee to the town of Hudson that St. Croix has.
okay. And again, I'm not understanding that because I have no reason to believe they wouldn't provide the same level of service.
That may be, if I may, that may be a perfect question to take into the 4th meeting. I mean, again, Tom is not here as an EMS expert, I mean, right?
Correct.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think having that kind of a conversation, we need to have a representative from Lakeview speak to that personally as they're handling the ambulance service. Does that make sense? I mean, just...
My issue is a little bit different than the RFP piece. My issue is the credibility of an agreement.
Gotcha. Yeah, actually, if you can come back up. Do you want to come back up and say that, or?
My issue is not with the RFP process. We don't know how that's going to shake out. But it does, this is a credibility of an agreement. And whether or not Lakeview is going to keep that credibility, which means there is always, that Lakeview ambulance is always here available to the town of Hudson within whatever time frame they talks about.
Mm-hmm.
We always, St. Croix EMS always had to have a 911 ambulance on site. We could not take a transfer. We did not. And that's why we didn't get all the transfers. It's because we were busy doing 2,000 other calls. So I look at it, I say, with the number of calls that Hudson gets, or at Town of Hudson, was it 400? Something like that? Is that ambulance going to sit there and wait? It's going to be held for that call. Given the number of ambulances that St. Croix, that Lakeview has, is that ambulance going to sit here and wait for the transfer to take place until another ambulance gets here from Lakeview to back them up? Or is it really going to roll over to being St. Croix EMS is going to be is the unofficial backup to the town of Hudson for 911 calls? You know,
I guess, again, bringing it back to what we're here for.
It's,
right?
it becomes a credibility issue.
Right.
We had that,
which I think you should pose directly to Lakeview, and I think having this conversation here and talking about it, you know, we're missing a very, very big piece. Right. Tom is a representative from the hospital. Right. He's not a representative of Lakeview. He's not an EMS professional. I'm just saying,
yeah,
let's have this conversation. If you're having those worries, let's have this conversation on the 4th with Lakeview here. Just my perception.
I'd be more than happy to help facilitate getting that question to them.
Okay.
Whatever means that you prefer in order to get the response back to you. I mean, I can be a conduit. I mean, as you mentioned, I'm not a representative of Lakeview for the context of this discussion, but certainly I work with them closely and that, so I can.
Sure. Why don't you and I have a conversation about what answer is, at least what I'm expecting, or my perceptions and how it affects how I view Lakeview in the RFP process. That's what it does. It really affects how I view them as a credible partner.
What I may suggest is, you know, if you could even, just to minimize any misunderstandings or make sure we're crystal clear, if you can put it in writing, then we can provide a written response and we can share that with whoever needs to see it.
Sure.
Thank you, Jim. Anybody else? Your facility? All right. Operations supervisors report.
Not much. We ended the year with, I don't know, 2,064 calls. We did a total of 439 transfers last year. So it's a huge number that will now be gone. Did 193 transfers since August. We did 898 calls since August to the end of December. Staffing for the month of December is up to 95%. So I filled 2,752 hours out of the 2,880 hours that were available to be filled. So
within those numbers, is there any training hours or no? That's pure, just
pure staff.
Nice. Nice work. Thank you. Have you had, I know this is kind of recent, right, that we're not doing the transfers or we're not the first on the call down list, but do you see the schedule flexing at all because of that?
Possibly. I mean, we have to get a couple months into it to see.
Sure.
You know, at least a month and a half into it to see.
Gotcha.
The impact on the budget and what it looks like, or at least first quarter, March at least.
Gotcha. So perhaps by the next meeting you'll have a better handle on.
Right.
I mean, I know that this is all new, right?
Right. So it's just going to be a watch the budget and see what happens, see what kind of 911 calls we're doing, see how the RFP, stuff shakes out, and how Troy, North Hudson, what they decide to do, and it's just going to be a watch and learn, watch and see. and adjust, so.
Gotcha. You mentioned something at yesterday's meeting about an accident that happened over at Menards.
Yeah, last Thursday afternoon, I think it was, we had a bad crash up on Carmichael by Menards. We had one ambulance there. Didn't get a lot of information beforehand on injuries or number of patients, so I got on scene first. Our ambulance got on scene. There's 2 patients that were considered critically injured. Instead of calling my other truck up there, I know I had Lakeview right across the street that was staffed and ready, so I made the determination to call Lakeview over there. For St. Croix EMS, it's not about the dollar. It's about, obviously for me, it's about patient care, making sure the patients on these calls get the quickest, most appropriate care. I mean, it's nice, I mean, it's nice having Lakeview at the hospital. It hurts that, you know, they took a good part of our business, but I'm still going to call them. I've worked with Lakeview for the 20-some years that I've been here. I will continue to work with Lakeview, that can, you know, that amount of time, you know, that we have left or that we're still here. It's all about patient care. I mean, and that's what, you know, that's what Thomas said, that it's about continuity of care, but.
How did that work? So I'm a novice. Mm-hmm. How did that work? I mean, did you literally call somebody at the ambulance, or did you go, was it through 911 dispatch?
I called dispatch on my portable and asked for that. I wanted, specifically wanted the truck from Hudson Hospital, Lakeview's truck from Hudson.
Gotcha.
So then dispatch does their process. I don't know if Lakeview gets paged through our 911 center, if it still goes through theirs in Alina. I'm not sure how that works, but in a matter of minutes, they were there.
Nice.
Pulled up on scene. I discussed with them, told them which patient was theirs, and, you know, they took over and got the patient out of the vehicle and, you know, off to the hospital. So
how did that all work on site? I mean, was it that seamless? You know what I mean? Like, because you're there, you're the first arrival, right? You've been at the scene.
Yep.
And then calling in another entity that you perhaps don't know. Or, you know what I mean, don't know the paramedic. How did that work? I
mean, I've been here long enough. I know, you know, I know a lot of the paramedics. I knew the one paramedic that was on the truck, so he used to work here for St. Croix EMS back in the day. So he got out of the truck, we talked, told him, you know, his patient was a front seat passenger. We had the driver of the vehicle because he was the most critically injured. And they just, you know, they took over. Fire department finished extricating the patient from the car. And, you know, they got the patient boarded and ready and into their ambulance. So,
gotcha.
It shortens the time frame of care, and
right on.
So,
thank you. Anything else? I'm sorry, I was worried that I cut you off short of the report, but
no, not too much. Just, you know, it's been kind of a quiet start to the year. I don't know how many calls we've done so far. Joanne might have that number this month, but.
Okay. How is the staffing levels as far as hiring goes? I mean, do you feel comfortable where you are with paramedics?
I'd like to have a few more, but we got one part-time paramedic that wants to come on now. We've talked to him. He'll be coming on in the next couple of weeks. We got 3 or 4 EMTs, I think, that are coming in on the 14th for orientation and stuff to start. So.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, 95%, that's, where were we 3 months ago, 4 months ago, right? 75. So, nice job.
Thank you.
Very nice. Items for future agenda. Do you guys have anything that you want to?
Do we have a sense of the timeline moving forward for the RFP evaluations, or what's happening?
Yes,
there?
we're meeting on the 4th. Sorry. I don't have a sense.
Okay.
I mean, I knew at the start of this it's going to be a process. So, yeah.
Fair enough.
Hoping, you know, obviously we told our partners that we're going to make a decision by the end of March on the contract, right? So, hopefully we'll come to some sort of avenue, which avenue are we taking soon. With that, next meeting, time and date. What do we think? Because we're having the meeting on the 4th. Do we want to do a regroup of this commission right after that meeting, kind of like to this time? I mean, does this?
Well, since this group is all at the meeting that we have on the 4th,
Yeah.
I don't know if there's much of a regroup. I mean,
Right.
both can be televised,
Right.
and so do we need to have a meeting? If there's actionable item or something like that, but
Maybe
I
we
don't
should.
see that happen.
Maybe we should schedule it for then, and then we can always cancel. It's easier to cancel a meeting
Works for
rather
me.
than to come up with one last minute. But I would be interested to see where we are now, a couple months in, or what would that be? A month in of not doing transfers, and where we sit with staffing. So we are looking at the 5th, yeah. Does this, Brenda?
If you want to look at financial numbers
Yeah.
for January.
Oh, yes.
I would propose that we postpone till the following week, because we won't have any numbers from the billing company on the 5th, February 5th for January.
Does that work for everybody? Thank you, Brenda.
Mm-hmm.
So we would be looking at, do you guys like Tuesdays in general? Or specifically?
It's okay. I mean,
Is there a day that works better, or?
I don't do Wednesdays.
Oh, that's the
Just
day
shuffle
you
the
don't
deck,
do.
so
That's golf day.
What was that, Tom?
I just shuffled the deck, so.
Gotcha. Nice. This time work? 7:30?
it's,
Noon would be better.
I am not a morning person, that's for sure.
What did you say, Josh?
At noon would be better.
Noon? Maybe the location changes too? Maybe we go to a restaurant? No, I'm just kidding. Do you guys want to push it back?
You can roll it back. There were certain reasons that, through the years where certain
Right.
people that still have to work or whatever couldn't be here, so they had to be here at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd rather do early than late afternoon, but 8, 9 o'clock, something like that. It doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, I think, maybe 8:30 would be better.
Yes,
Oh.
The biggest thing would be what time Tom prefers to meet, but
What was that?
depends on what time you prefer to meet. I don't know if
Yeah,
later in the morning.
there's the schedule guy right there because
My schedule's a mess.
I got meetings.
Tuesday mornings after 8:30 are tough,
Okay.
but like I said, I can shuffle. This is important, so I can shuffle the deck if needed.
Yeah?
Is there a better morning except Wednesdays?
Actually, yeah, Wednesday mornings. Wednesdays are out for you.
Yeah.
Mondays or Thursdays.
Thursdays.
How about Monday?
Monday, I could, well, I'd prefer not to do Mondays. I have a prayer group on Monday morning.
Come on, Stan.
Sorry. I got my priorities.
Yeah.
But Thursdays would be great. Everybody got Thursdays good?
I'm good with
Be okay.
anything,
Which date are we looking at?
but Valentine's Day, actually.
Oh. Well, early in the morning, you know he's doing Valentine's on the.
I
unless take
noticed
them for
that.
breakfast.
That works for me.
The 14th?
14th?
Okay.
At 8,
Oh, let's push it back a little bit more.
9.
Yeah. 10?
Really?
9 is
Nine?
fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, coming off of last night's meeting into this meeting. Yeah. All right. So we got that set. All right. I'll entertain a motion.
Adjourn.
I'll second that.
Motion to adjourn in a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion.